Welcome back everyone once again. It's Dennis from Super Parapos, and today I'm going to be talking about my Katakuri deck. It's a very old deck from OP03, so I'm just going to be running through it, not really explaining too much of the card's effects because they are really that old. But it got me top recently at a local tournament, only a 5 rounds. I went X1, so I won 4 games, lost 1, so it did pretty well and against most of the meta. I will be talking about the matchups at the end of the video, but let's run through this deck profile rather quickly because, like I said, everything here is old. It's OP03 deck, not much has changed from adding new stuff. So, obviously you need 4 of Charlotte Pudding. She's your searcher for the Big Mom Pirate dudes and the Pirate Bros. This is Strucin, 2K, that has a ability to knock out certain little blockers that some decks might play, but honestly, he's just a 2K in hand. I really forget about his effect entirely most of the time. Shirahoshi, this is something rather new from EBO 1. She came out to basically anti-Rob Lucci and Gecko Moria, and she completely obliterates Rob Lucci because, as you can see, if they KO her, you just get a free life, so they're not going to do that. So she pretty much stalls out the game for you, and that's a very good thing because it lets you live longer than you would have. So I like playing her at 2. You could like to find her in a Lucci matchup. And then we got Onami. This one is for the Trafalgar Law matchup because if you need to get good triggers, she's much better than even Beji in that matchup because you want to knock out their board and break their board because, yeah, they flood the board way too fast. We all know how broken Law is. We don't need to go through that. Over here, we've got another 2K searchable with Big Mom Pirate, the Charlotte Amanda. Her effect is also kind of sucky, but you might find potential to use it if you want to rest a 2-drop or less. But it's mostly for the name of Big Mom Pirate so that your Charlotte Pudding doesn't miss and so that your Charlotte Perils doesn't miss, as we're playing 4 of them. We're using him to look for the rest of our Big Mom Pirate stuff. And we like triggering him out because, of course, it's a free body. We all need free bodies. And up next, we've got Beji. Of course, in answer to most decks, it'll pretty much stall them out, make them lose most of the time if you have it in your final life. We all know how that goes. Beji is the man. We got to play 4 of Beji. Gotta negate those attacks. Up next, Sanji. It's a simple blocker. I'm cutting down 3 because I'm making room for so much other stuff. You're gonna see this deck look very weird with odd ratios of a bunch of 3-ofs instead of 4-ofs, but it worked for me, so we're gonna roll with it. Sanji is searchable through Pudding, so that's convenient as well. And I got 1 Cracker. Cracker Barrel here is pretty decent because he's gonna pull off that double attack at certain situations. If not, it's searchable with Pudding and Pero, and it's a 1K counter. You can easily just get rid of him, put a 4th Sanji. It's up to you, but Cracker worked for me in 1 matchup. Up next for Okiku, because Okiku is the best trigger you can get mid to early game. And since your leader can go to 7K rather quickly, you can lower your opponent's life to 3 or less that much faster. So another tip for playing the deck would be that try to have your opponent at 3 life or less before you start taking hits to your life. Like, try to counter out if you can because Kinkoku Nojo won't work if your opponent has 4 or more life. Up next, we've got 3 of Gidatsu, something that's very good early on in the game only. Otherwise, later in the game, he just becomes a 1K counter. That's why he's at 3 and not at 4. We also don't play the starve method, so we just keep attacking anyways. So you're never going to really knock out a 5-drop unless your opponent counters out early. Then that's more damage to them because they caused it. But either way, you get to knock out 4 drops with Gidatsu, as well as like in Trafalgar Law, Shiruya is 3 cost, and Gordon is also 1 drop if they might leave it. Up next, 3 of Satori. I would play more of him, but the reason I play Strucins and Amanda over this guy who has a much better effect is because they are Big Mom Pirate types, and you get to find a 2K with your Pudding or the Charlotte Perils Peril, because if you see something in Satori, you just miss and it goes to the bottom of the deck. Up next, 2 of Weepy Hoshi. This is one to help you draw cards just off the trigger. If not, it's a 1K counter, so good for that. It's something that could be cut, but I just found room for it. Like I said, this deck is a very 50-50 win game, so you need good triggers in this deck to even win any games. That's how yellow has always been. It's specifically true with Katakuri. You're only winning because of your triggers. And then Charlotte Linlin is I play a 4 of. It's a very great bot in this deck. If your opponent gives you life, that leaves you more time to play your 10-drop Big Mom later in the game. And if your opponent takes the life, it's also good for you. So gotta love 4 of that. Obviously searchable. Up next, I've got 1 of Charlotte Katakuri. I could be running this at more because nowadays you have to watch out for 8-drop Kid in the Bonnie matchup. And Gecko Moria is also another one you like to bottom deck. But besides that, your Katakuri can put back to your top life your Shirahoshi or your Onami that has been played for an effect to banish. So yeah, can't go wrong with one of Katakuri. And here's where a lot of you guys are going to hate me for this, but I'm going to tell you why. I play 3 of 10 drop Big Mom. I'm going to tell you guys a secret that you don't want to hear, some bad news, but most games don't last that long, and you don't really reach 10 Dawn all the time, especially when you're playing a rushdown deck like Trafalgar Law. You don't even see this or need this. So, and when you do, you have 4 puddings, and you have 4 Perils to help you find this thing for the other matchups. Because your opponent's always going to fear the 10 drop no matter what, because they know it's Katakuri. But once you see too many of these, you end up with no counters by the end game. You just end up being rushed to death, and that happens way more often than you getting advantage off of playing a 10 drop. So we're in a different format that's a lot faster. We don't reach 10 Dawn that fast, so I'm playing 3 of these. So yeah, sorry for you guys that hate me for that, but it's going to be 3 of 10 drop Big Moms. Like I said, we're playing many other big bodies, so it doesn't even matter. In fact, I cut it for the one Katakuri. So that's something you want to swap out if you would like. Next up, we've got You're the One Who Should Disappear. I have never actually read this card's name out loud in my life. I just call it the 3-cost event because it's every color has it. Trash 1 plus 3,000. Very good because this deck plays a lot of dead cards in your hand in the late game. For example, Kinkoku Nojo in the end game. You don't want to play it, it's a waste of your time. You'd rather discard it for a 0-3. And then if you see this in life with your leader's effect, put it to the bottom, get a free life at the end of the game. And you pretty much win games with this alone because this is a free life. You can't really beat that off as a trigger. Last card as a 1-of is the 200 million volts Amaru. This is the one that'll win you a game if you hold it on to the end of the match because your opponent will not expect it. But besides that's, basically 2 Dawn for 30,000 power, which is pretty good. And then rest of 4 drop, which everyone's playing 4 drops these days. You've got Rebecca, you've got Shiruya, you have Blocker Law, and the list goes on and on for everybody else. And this deck does pretty well against NL. So that's the full deck profile. In the glare over here, that's Satori at 3. And my matchups in the tournament were, I forgot the order of it, but it was 2 Bonnies, 1 Law, 1 Rob Lucci, and 1 Blue-Yellow Ace. So basically all meta decks, except for the Blue-Yellow Ace. The one matchup I lost was the Bonnie, and only because I did not see enough counters at the very end, so my opponent got very lucky. I had like a large hand, but for some reason there was no counters there, not even in the last life. So they barely won. Every other matchup was pretty good. Like I said, Shirahoshi can completely destroy Rob Lucci. It slows them down very harshly. You get to play 10 drops. It's hard for them to remove it. It's hard for them to remove your 8 drop Katakuri. Linlin, they have to have the cost reducers. Against Bonnie, this deck does alright because you can... It's just a Katakuri deck. You just rely on your triggers. You hope to see Kinkoku Nojo, your Sanjis, your Satoris, your Capone Veggies, and then eventually you load up to when you play your 7-drop Linlins and 10-drop Big Moms. And that's how you win most matchups. Law, I beat because of actually hitting Onami off a trigger. That came in so handy. It got to destroy a blocker kid that they needed to survive the next turn. So, yeah, guys, that's Katakuri. And... yeah, even one of my hardest matchups was actually Blue-Yellow Ace because he almost beat me, but I got a Sanji trigger at the very end. Like I said, the BS of Katakuri, that's just how it is. It's how it's always going to be. Anyways, still strong in OP07. Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what you think about the Catman in OP07. Peace.